It was April 19, 2014 in Petersburg, Virginia, that was shaken to its core when news of a house at 721 Harding Street was in roaring red flames. Yet, police weren't first dispatched to the place by one concerned neighbor, nor was it the fire itself, but by one chilling phone call made from inside the house, asking desperate for help. The caller was later identified to be from a woman who was hiding inside a closet with a little boy. The woman was so frantic and scared that the police tried to get there as fast as they could, but to their dismay, it was already too late. The flames had taken over the house, just like anger took over a vindictive man with a desire for revenge.
It's here at 721 Harding Street, where Valerie Chavis Jones's mother, Pauline Wilkins, used to live.
She be out here cooking out.
Where the home once stood is now a memorial for Wilkins, her daughter, Vicky Chavis Ansar, granddaughter, Tanique Davis, and her great-grandson, 2-year-old Delvari Chavis. On April 19, 2014, all 4 of them were killed in a quadruple murder in the home. Wilkins and Ansar fatally stabbed. The home then set on fire, killing Davis and little Delvari. The man behind the murders, Alexander Hill Jr., had threatened Wilkins' daughter Vivian multiple times after their relationship ended and was convicted in 2017 after a nationwide manhunt.
Hey guys, welcome back to Crimeco, your go-to channel for some intriguing and incredible true crime stories. Before we continue with today's case, remember to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. Help this true crime community grow even more. So buckle up and get ready to go on a wild ride with us. What was supposed to be just another relaxing Saturday morning for the Chavis family turned into a hellfire nightmare when they discovered that their house was wildly engulfed by blazing fire. The fire had caught the family by surprise. First responders were the ones to find the bodies. A recording was captured by the helmet camera of a fire captain who was inside the house battling the fire. During his efforts, he discovered 2 of the 4 deceased individuals. The 2 bodies, Pauline Wilkins and Vicky Chavis Ansar, were found with multiple stab wounds to the torso. Another 2 were found hiding somewhere in the house, where medical examiners later verified that it was the body of Tanique Chavis and his 2-year-old son, Delvari Chavis, who had then suffered smoke inhalation and severe fire injuries prior to their demise. Vivian, who was out in Colonia Heights when the devastating incident happened, received the painful news on the phone. But as soon as she had heard what had happened to her family, she knew who was to blame. Guilt ran through Vivian's veins as the 4 bodies of her beloved mother, sister, cousin, and nephew rolled out the door. She was supposed to be the main target of whoever did such an awful thing to her family. Vivian, who was then 48, had spent her entire life living in Petersburg with her tightly knit family. On her mother's side, she was one of 6 siblings, but still, they were all very close to each other. When the fire happened, she immediately knew that her ex-boyfriend had something to do with it. The man in question was Alexander Hill Jr. Vivian and Hill had met in a store back in the summer of 2012. And after a brief chat, they exchanged phone numbers and got to know each other for several months. It was April 2013 when both of them decided to take things further and became serious. In the beginning, the relationship was smooth sailing. Hill was very nice and polite, and Vivian seemed like she was under a love spell. But soon it would turn into a toxic environment, not only for her, but also for her family, who had sensed something wrong with this man. Vivian's sister even told her that something was fishy about her man. Soon it was discovered that Hill had lied about his background and ethnicity, perhaps in an attempt to hide who he really was. But Vivian was high in love with Hill, and in June 2013, the couple moved in together. That was the beginning of the end. It was during this time that Hill revealed his true colors and began to verbally abuse Vivian. But the tip of the iceberg was when, several months after she started living with him, she found out that Hill was married to a woman named Linda Ann Hill. He explained to Vivian that the marriage was just for the sake of his pretended Trinidadian tradition, But that didn't make any sense at all since the woman he married was American. Vivian later found out that they actually used to live in that house together, and on top of that, when Vivian finally left Hill, his wife moved in shortly after her. There were several other red flags all around Hill. Once they moved in together, he started to isolate Vivian from her family and demanded that she take on the traditional role of taking care of the household. However, he implicitly implied that she become a housewife, but still expected her to work since she was the main breadwinner in their relationship. Hill was not only abusing Vivian financially, but he was also toying with her mind. Little by little, Hill was making more and more often degrading comments about her family, especially her daughters. Although Vivian put a quick stop to these comments, there were always occasions in which Hill had an opinion that upset Vivian. The situation quickly turned toxic, and Vivian seemed to be walking around eggshells near Hill. The breaking point in their relationship happened when Hill, in a fit of anger, attacked Vivian and almost killed her. It was a normal morning for the couple when, once again and out of nowhere, Hill would say weird things to get a reaction from Vivian. But this time she stood her ground, and a voice match ensued. Hill began to throw her clothes out of their bedroom's closet, and as she was putting them back, he suddenly grabbed her by her hair and pushed her to the ground. Once he was on top of her, he pressed his knees onto her chest, suffocating her, but Vivian managed to scream for help. After a bit more of a fight, she quickly left the house barefoot, but Hill found her just about a block away and apologized to her. It was right there and then that Vivian said no more and told him that she would move out. The next day, she went to their once shared house and, being petty, she pushed Hill to the ground when he opened the door for her so that he could have a taste of what he had put her through the day before. Hill fought back Vivian's pettiness with fire and reported her for breaking into his house and assaulting him. But the case was dismissed when he failed to appear in juvenile and domestic relations court to testify about the incident. After several months of being gaslighted and abused both financially and mentally, Vivian thought she could finally be at peace with her family. But Hill had other plans, and if he couldn't control her anymore, then he would make sure she regretted ever leaving him. The intimidating phone calls were the beginning. He not only threatened her life, but also the lives of her family members. These calls drove Vivian to take action and file a criminal complaint at the magistrate's office on December 23, 2013. In the formal complaint, she quoted Hill's words, "I know where you and your kids live. I will lay you all down. I know where your mother lives." For the next few months, there was an ongoing battle between Vivian and Hill. Both would report each other, and Hill would shamelessly lie about Vivian threatening him and his young daughter, but all of them were dismissed. Vivian fought hard for a protective order that would never come. She stated in an interview that the police department had failed her since they wouldn't take her reports seriously, and she even shared that a judge told her that unless Hill physically attacked her, there would be no grounds for a protective order. If only someone in a position of power and willing to help would have listened to her and taken seriously all of her claims, perhaps her family would still be alive today. A few weeks before the awful events, Vivian found something very odd in a shed in her backyard. The family used this place for storage, and she found several clothes ruined with bleach. She immediately made a report and stated that Hill was for sure behind that stunt, sending her a message that he could get into the property without her knowing any time. But the police dismissed her claim since she didn't have any solid proof. But sometimes you just have that feeling in your guts, and you know that something is not right. On April 10, Vivian and her family made another report in which they stated that Hill had been driving around their street at least 10 times, making her and her family feel unsafe. But the police only advised to just document every time Hill drove by. Chavis left the home just a few hours before the murders and deadly fire. Tears stream down her face as she expresses her remorse for allowing the man into her home and family, blaming herself for their tragic deaths. She wishes she had been the one targeted instead. She wonders why fate didn't choose her instead of her mother and sister, who suffered fatal stabbings, along with her niece and 2-year-old nephew, who lost their lives due to smoke inhalation during the fire that engulfed their house. The fateful night happened just before Easter in 2014, and although the Chavis family was scared of Hill, Nobody could have foreseen that Hill would break into Vivian's mother's house, which would result in the fatal stabbing of her mother, Pauline Wilkins, and her sister, Vicky Ansar. Pauline suffered 23 stab wounds, while Vicky endured 13. It is insane to think about the amount of anger and rage Hill had towards these two women to hurt them in such a way. 4 generations of the Chavis family were lost that night, and the person responsible for it was yet to be caught. The police determined that Hill left Petersburg after the incidents. They managed to find out that he took a taxi to reach a Waffle House located in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. From there, he got a ride to an Amtrak station where a security video captured him. Since it was Easter holiday, public transportation services were suspended, leaving Hill with no viable options for travel. Thanks to the security footage, he was seen walking out of the frame and leaving the station, disappearing from sight. Hill vanished into thin air, and it would be a year until the police found news about him. The stillness of the case irritated Anna Theresa Cascio, a Washington Post writer and close friend of one of the victims, Vicky. Cascio expressed her disappointment with the way the issue was handled in a Washington Post article. She even repeated that the terrible murder of 4 people was expected to receive widespread media publicity. The hope was for a large-scale effort to find the perpetrator, as well as a nationwide appeal for collaboration and sympathetic depictions of the victims. However, neither the Post nor any of the televised or online news sources covered the tragedy. Even now, there is little information available about it. The combined force and efforts of Vivian and Cascio then proved fruitful after months of struggling to be heard, taken seriously. In the following months, sporadic pieces of information came and went, most of it within the Richmond vicinity. Sightings of Hill occurred in North Carolina, and the community rallied to gather funds for a reward. And then, in March 2015, Hill appeared on a WGRZ news report in Buffalo, New York, which was more than 500 miles away from the crime scene. The segment revolved around a pastor who had offered Hill a place to stay in exchange for carrying out renovation work. During the interview, Hill introduced himself as Trent Dales, who had worked as a carpenter and had lost both his home and job. He tried to hide his face with sunglasses and a baseball cap. In the interview, Hill stated, "The minister has given me an opportunity to do some work, kept me out of the elements. So far, it looks like it's going up." Then, a few weeks later, the U.S. Marshals Service had reissued his image on the 1-year anniversary of the alleged crime. An anonymous informant recognized him and guided officers to Buffalo. It was discovered that he had been residing at Street Luke's Mission of Mercy, a homeless shelter and soup kitchen. Subsequently, in April 2015, he was apprehended by the authorities. The arraignment was as gruesome as the crime itself. Having the remaining members of Chavis' family, including Vivian herself, hear and visualize what her loved ones went through gave her doubled-out pain, but their fight for justice pushed through. After years of delay, in September 2017, Commonwealth's Attorney Cheryl Wilson delivered her opening statement to the jury, outlining what she characterized as a turbulent relationship between Vivian Chavis and Hill. Wilson stated that Hill was an on-and-off boyfriend of Chavis, and the relationship had grown so contentious that Hill allegedly threatened to end her life along with everything she held dear. In an attempt to establish their client's innocence, the defense argued that while video and images documented the sequence of events, they failed to identify the perpetrator. The defense further contended that the police were rushed in their pursuit of a suspect and evidence, and they claimed that this evidence had been mishandled. The defense also pointed out that DNA discovered beneath the fingernails of 2 victims did not correspond to Hill's DNA profile. Before concluding proceedings during Alexander Hill's murder trial, the jurors were exposed to a 911 call originating from within the residence on the night of the homicides. The jury watched a video from a fire captain's helmet camera, capturing the moment when the firefighter, while combating the flames, stumbled upon 2 of the 4 deceased individuals. Additionally, the jury was privy to testimony provided by the police during the proceedings. The prosecution then wrapped up their case after taking 45 witnesses to the stand, pinning Hill at the scene of the crime and solidifying his involvement. The trial lasted for 8 days and finally concluded with a verdict on September 15, 2017. Nearly 3.5 years later, a jury found Alexander Hill Jr. guilty. Hill was sentenced to 3 life sentences, 2 of which were without the option of parole. He was also given 3 years for the misdemeanor charges. After years of praying for justice for their loved ones, the Chavis family members were seen together stronger than ever, holding hands and making a clear statement. Victory has been served. Thank you, Jesus. Well, folks, that's all for today. Thank you for staying all the way up to the end of this video. If you're down for this type of content, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We'll also love to know what you think about our content, so leave a comment and tell us all about it. See you next time.